often asked what resources I recommend for starting a cut flower farm, and I thought today, it's winter over here, this might be a really good opportunity just to sit down and talk about some of the books that I have. I'm a big fan of books. I'm also a big fan of courses as well, so maybe we'll pick that up in a separate topic. But yeah, so I'm going to go through my top 10 recommendations for cut flower farming books. So it was really hard to narrow down the selection. There's a lot of great books out there. I also haven't read all of the cut flower farming books that there is to be had either, so take that with a grain of salt. But to get a really good list together that I think might be useful, I've split this into 3 categories. So one is going to be on growing and harvesting, one will be about the business side of things, and then one will be around like designing and arranging cut flowers. I'll start with most people's favourite, which is growing and harvesting. And the first book that I want to chat about is Florette's Cut Flower Garden. So grow, harvest and arrange stunning seasonal blooms. So a lot of these books will kind of dip in and out of other categories, but I think predominantly this one's about growing and harvesting flowers. So I'll just talk through some of the, I guess, best parts of the book. All of Florette's books have a lovely photography. I think her husband does the photography. It's very nice. So they all look and feel really lovely. But it kind of takes you through the process from woe to go, which I really like. So what techniques you need to do to start seeds, like key cutting garden plant types. So it takes you right through all of the basics of that. What sort of tools do you need? And then it goes through all of the seasons basically, and what sorts of flowers you could expect to have, some of her favourites, and then how to grow some of the favourites basically. So for example, we've got the peonies page here, so she's got a bit of a overview of peonies, how to grow them, some of her favourites, how to get the best vase life, and so on and so forth. And so it's another one for ranunculus, that kind of thing. So a really nice, well-rounded book that gives you kind of the whole experience from woe to go. So the second book in this category is The Flower Farmer's Year by Georgie Newberry. So I know that Georgie is currently doing a rewrite of her book, so if you were interested in buying it, maybe hold out until she's released the new version. But the sort of content that's in this book is very, very similar to Florette's The Cut Flower Garden, but from a UK perspective. So if you lived in the UK or somewhere that's a bit more UK adjacent, maybe try The Flower Farmer's Year instead, or as well as. So if you were going to buy only one book, I would suggest, and you're starting out, I would choose either one of these 2 books to get you started. So that would be my recommendation. So the third book in this category is the Cut Flower Source Book by Rachel Siegfried, Exceptional Perennials and Woody Plants for Cutting. Similarly to the other 2 books, it's a nice, woe to go book. It kind of takes you through the whole process, favourite tools, what tasks to do in spring, summer, autumn, winter, etc. There's a bit of floristry work in here, so how to arrange things, obviously all from the perennial perspective. But then the thing that I think is the most valuable, and I know a lot of other people like this too, is the plant directory that's in this book. So the plant directory has 128 plants that covers the majority of perennials and woodies that Rachel has grown on her farm. And I'll give you, without giving too much of the book away, because you should go and buy it, but this is kind of what it looks like. So you have some lovely photos, talks you through all the benefits of those plants and some key cultivars that you might like to consider. It's quite a useful tool. So if you're thinking about getting into perennials or woody shrubs, definitely keep an eye out for this book. Super useful. Cool. So the fourth book is Specialty Cut Flowers by Alan Armitage and Judy Lauschman. So it looks like that and like that. So it's not a book that you want to sit down and have a nice quiet read of. This book is really a reference book or handbook around very specific and detailed, growing conditions, specifications of individual crops. So it covers perennials, annuals, bulbs, and woody plants for fresh and dried cut flowers. So I'll give you an example. So this is Achillea, the Achillea millefolium, I should say. So it goes through like what's the correct propagation, temperatures, and conditions, how to grow your transplant or seedling on, environmental factors, field performance, how many stems you should expect to get from each plant, and in year 1, year 2, year 3 kind of thing, and the length, spacing data for specific varieties, greenhouse performance as well, so if you're going to grow them in a greenhouse, if you're getting foliar testing done, there's some guides on what that should look like too, stage of harvest, post-harvest, some other key cultivars, etc, etc. So not one that you want to sit down and read over a cup of coffee, but is one that is really useful if you need to troubleshoot something, or if you're planning to bring in a new crop and you actually just want like the facts of how to grow and harvest the flower. Highly recommend that one if you can get your hands on it. Cool, so the fifth and final book in this category is the Living Soil Handbook by Jesse Frost. So the No-Till Grower's Guide to Ecological Market Gardening. He also has a great YouTube channel and has done podcasting extensively. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, highly recommend Jesse. A host of really great knowledge he is. This book, whilst it's not flower farming specific, there is a lot of obviously cross-functional application from market gardening to flower farming, particularly in this context. So this is all about how to grow in a no-till fashion in a really ecological way. So if you're interested in doing that, then this book is really, really awesome for that. So basically, it takes you through like the basics of soil science and living soil. Some nice diagrams. Goes through all the basics that you need to know about that. There's a section on how to break in new ground. So if you're just getting started and you need to set up a space, it kind of takes you through a few different options for doing that. There's a whole section on mulch and kind of the pros and the cons of various mulches. So that's super useful. And there's also a bit about cover cropping as well, which I have found particularly useful. And lots of other different things in here too. But really useful book if you are wanting to grow as naturally as possible and consider the soil in the process. So highly recommend. Cool, so moving on to a new section, which is the business side of things. So the first book I'm going to recommend in this section is The Lean Farm by Ben Hartman. So how to minimize waste, increase efficiency, and maximize value and profits with less work, which is key. So again, this is not a flower farming book specifically, but very, very applicable to flower farming. And I'd recommend this one specifically if you're getting started, but equally if you're established, also very useful. But it basically takes you through the lean process and how to apply that to farms. So things like minimizing the amount of steps you take, ensuring that everything that you do is really, really efficient and focused on customer value. Very, very useful, especially if you're setting up a space and you're designing your processes and things like that. This book is very, very useful and will help you set up a really successful business. Oh, so the seventh book and second in the business category is this one, which is Flower Farming for Profit by Lenny Larkin, The Complete Guide to Growing a Successful Cut Flower Business. So this is a relatively newer book. And I admit I have not made my way through the entire thing yet, because it's so chock-a-block full of great information, but I am working my way through that. And it's making this list because already it's adding value to my business. And I think if you are starting out a cut flower patch particularly, you need to start thinking about early on how you're going to be profitable in this venture, because that's the difference between a hobby and an actual business. A hobby you're just doing for fun, but a business, it's also fun, but you want to make some profit while you're at it. It's a money-making venture. The key parts in this book, so there's part 1, which is becoming a flower farmer, part 2, planning for profitability, and part 3, farming operations. And I've earmarked a few pieces in the book that I'll just talk you through. So the first one is around, this was really useful, I thought. You can see that, the flower dollar. And so she breaks down what kind of goes into that. How can I best explain this? So the profit, for example, is 25 cents of a dollar, or might be your profit. 10 cents goes into infrastructure and machinery. 20 cents might be to pay your employees, 15 cents for land costs, 15 cents for farm supplies, 15 cents for admin costs. So I thought that was a really nice way to kind of break down all the things that you need to think about in terms of like the costs that go into your business, and actually what portion of that would be reflected or could be reflected in the profit. So that's kind of the first part. The second thing that I've earmarked here is around crop profitability and cost of production. So you can see like this is what a lot of the book looks like, and it's reasonably chunky. So there's a lot of really good information here. So the crop profitability and cost of production helps you kind of figure out, is this crop even worth growing? And so how to kind of figure that out. So that's a really useful section in the book. And then, finding efficiencies. So this kind of leads on from the lean farming book, but actually how do you figure out what's the most efficient thing to do? So a little bit like, the lean farm book, but specifically based around flower farming. So some good experience documented here from Lenny, which is great. Highly recommend this book. Lots of awesome material in here, and I don't think that there's another book out there that quite articulates things quite the same way for flower farmers as this book. So really recommend. Cool, so moving on to the last category that I have, which is the design and arranging side of things. So first book, and that is A Year in Flowers. So it's another Floret book, Erin Benzakein. And again, like all of Floret's books, like it's a lovely book, lovely photography, but it really takes you through any essential techniques for arranging right through the seasons, so spring, summer, winter, etc. Understanding colour, what are the fundamental ingredients. I like that she's laid out kind of a lot of ideas for growing as well. So if you are a flower farmer, rather than just arranging flowers, that can give you a lot of really good ideas in terms of what you might like to grow. And so this is for every single season that she's done this. So super useful there. Also takes you through how to do specific types of arrangements. So like if we find an example, one moment caller. So for example, like the hand-tied market bouquet. So like she'll tell you what ingredients that she's used, what sort of wrapping supplies you might need, and then kind of takes you through like the actual step-by-step process. So if you're looking at selling flowers, not just wholesale, for example, you might have to do an element of arranging, and so that's why I've included the design components, but yeah, super useful. Shows you how to wrap that, and yeah, there's lots of different types of arranging, like centerpieces and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's another example. But yeah, so I really recommend that book. Cool, so the second book in this category is The Flower School by Joseph Massey. Some lovely Icelandic poppies on the cover. The Principles and Pleasures of Good Flowers. This, I think, is probably my favourite design book that I've come across so far. So similarly to the Fleurette book, it takes you through all the basics and essential techniques for floristry. This book, I think, is less about the ingredients and ideas of things that you could grow to arrange with, and is more about purely just the floristry. So it's a bit more comprehensive in terms of design work and that kind of thing. So you might have key parts here. So yeah, the elements and principles of floral design. It's also like beautiful, has lots of lovely photography in here. And as you can see from like the text, it's jam-packed full of really good information. So you're getting a lot of value for money with this book. Colour theory is another thing that he goes into quite a bit. There's a whole chapter on it. You can get an idea. There's some good visuals there as well. Yeah, there's lots of great information in this book. I think, yeah, this would be my favourite design book that I've come across so far. And then, of course, takes you through how to do key, arrangements. So, for example, classic centerpiece, kind of shows you what it looks like, talks you through step by step what sort of materials and that do you need, etc. Yeah, so really lovely book. Cool, and last but not least, this one is called Designing with Dried Flowers by Hannah Rose Rivers Muller, Creating Everlasting Arrangements. So this, is all about designing with dried flowers, which I know is sometimes a bit of a challenge, especially if you're used to working with fresh. So this is all about drying your own flowers and arranging with them. So quite a comprehensive book. Also goes into sourcing your own flowers if you're not growing them too, which is great. I'll give you an idea of what this sort of looks like. Really comprehensive around if you were looking at getting into dried floral work. Again, like a lot of these books, I think there's a theme brewing here, but it's all about seasonality. So it's really key if you're a flower farmer, being able to think about what flowers you're growing and what you're going to do with them season by season. So that's partly why I enjoy these sorts of books. But really useful. And then also takes you through a lot of specific arrangements as well from a dried flower perspective. So I'll find a good example of that. I mean, look at this lady's drying room, like, isn't that amazing? Rooms. Let me find a good example. So if you're going to do like this, like forever flower crowns, for example, and there's a whole host of like different wreaths and doing bouquets and that kind of thing. So really useful if you're thinking about getting into drieds. Right, so that's the end of my book recommendations if you're starting out cut flower farming. So hopefully you've got some good tips and books to add on your wish list. I've realised that I didn't add any books of my favourite floral educators, which is Lisa Mason-Ziegler. I have her Cool Flowers book, which is an essential concept to understand if you are getting into flower farming. But I've also heard that she has a lovely new book I can't recall what it's called, but again, it seems very comprehensive, and I've heard a lot of good things. So I'm looking forward to purchasing that at some stage, but I haven't yet got my hands on it. So I want to know, what have I missed out? What are some of your favourite books that you think I've missed off the list? So chuck them in the comments. If you're interested in this sort of content, please do subscribe to my channel. I'm hoping to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this season, so that would really help me out. If you have any ideas for videos, if you like this sort of like top 5, top 10 sort of a video, let me know, and I'll look to put some other videos out. See you next time.